This is Flowers on the Stage.
Leadership is always being redefined, I believe, to other people's necessities. I do try to lead, and I in a way just by trying to set examples, and trying to hold on to treating others the way that you would want to be treated. Communication is one of the most important aspects of anything, and keeping an organization going like Spafford has been for nearly 15 years at this point, with as many members as it's had, front of house and back of house of this thing. Communication is just key. um, and everything changes all the time. It's always changing, and every time you feel like you get a grasp of something good, it gets taken away from you, or something about the industry changes, so you have to adapt. So being adaptable is really important as well, and being able to kind of have the foresight to see what the obstacles are going to be and try to put a plan together to overcome them. I feel like everything is always trying to make this not happen, whether it's Mother Nature or finances, or just breakdowns and this and that, or um, personalities. There's so many things that can get in the way of making this successful or keeping it alive. So I think that having the consciousness like of and the communication within the band to just be aware of those things and open up the dialogue, has what allowed us to like remain, you know to be around like this long. I mean, it's tough. It has been tough. But it's been amazing, and I wouldn't change it for anything. So I think that this is just kind of the natural progress of bands that stay around for this long.
Yeah, 15 years is no joke. And, thinking right now, 2024, the last 15 years and how much has changed, and having to, like you mentioned, adapt. And it's one thing to, play some music with your buddies touring around and to just kind of cross your fingers, hoping everything's going to work out. But, on the other hand, to assume the burden of saying, hey, where are we trying to get to? And making sure you're, like you mentioned, you're able to adapt to changing circumstances. Um, Man, like I can only imagine the amount of just sticking together that it takes to have longevity as a band. My next question, what would you say is the personality trait that you most admire in other people you work with, whether that's bandmates or sound guys and managers, etc.?
I'm like a really hyphy kind of person, and I can get work myself up pretty quick. So I appreciate the calmness of other people, and the level-headedness. Professionalism also goes in tune with that, because if people do know what their job is, and they know, like, um, being able to trust people to just kind of handle their business is super important to me. And hiring people that can do what they say that they were hired to do. It's really important, and having like a calmness about it. Spafford has always prided themselves on being super respectful to like house crews and stuff when we go from venue to venue. It's just, we always tell the crew, when you're working at the show, like, you represent Spafford, and we say, like, hey, you may not be here in a year, back at this venue again, whether you decide to be here or not. You might not be here, but we will be, so please be respectful to these venues, because when we come back, we just want them to have a good taste in their mouth about us, as we come back. So just being professional, being calm, being courteous, it's really important aspects to keeping this thing moving.
For sure. And yeah, I feel like you get a lot of opinions get tossed around, and I've never heard anything other than just like positive remarks about the Spafford team. Whether that's David Diller, shout out to David.
Hey,
Yeah, definitely,
Big David.
it goes a long way. Fucking cheers to Diller here. jump into the side. I'd love to hear an unlikely place or an interesting story about a place you've found inspiration for a song.
Well, this here is my late cat, Peanut, who I got when I was 20 years old.
Rest in
Um,
peace.
rest in peace. She passed away 2 years ago. One of the hardest days of my entire life. Anybody who's struggling with that or going through that right now, I feel for you. I was bawling like a baby for a solid 3 days. It was awful. She was most certainly my best friend. She's been with me through so much in life.
Mm.
Um, I had some pieces of songs that I wrote when I was maybe around 18, 19 years old, like just some riffs and just some pieces. And when I was around 30 something, I had some other pieces of songs. And my Peanut would, when we lived in the desert, we didn't have grass out there. Okay, you can really grow grass, and to maintain it is like a pain in the ass. So you kind of just had dirt lots, you know. If you chose not to have grass, it was just desert. And Peanut, for some reason, would run out every single morning, and she would find like a dirt patch, and she would fall into it and roll around and just rub her body and like her back like all into this thing, and there'd be dirt flying everywhere. And it was just so weird how this domesticated house cat like adapted to the desert way of living, and like would find herself like bathing in dirt. So I wound up taking these pieces of songs that I had from when I was younger and right around that time, and it collectively just kind of like it finally just like worked, like something like finally clicked. And I was sitting there one day watching Peanut take her bath in dirt. I decided to name the song Dirt Bath. And
Mm.
it was kind of about her, maybe waking up from like this, long sleep, and, getting it into her mind that she wanted to go, walk. And then it was, part of it's like of her walking, like jumping off of the bed or walking down the hallway and down the stairs, and finally finding her way outside, crying to get the door open, finding her way outside and finally getting to this patch of dirt where she can roll around happily. And that's basically what the song is about in my mind.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Next, I'd love for you to talk to me about whether it's a past failure or a rejection from when you were younger or even recently that you feel like had a positive effect on you ultimately, that kind of redirected you down a quote unquote better path.
Look, the whole journey's been full of these failures, but when you what's in my mind right now is I was looking at this the other day. I was looking at like some old Facebook posts from Spafford, from somewhere, and it was us trying to win like a battle of the bands. And we lost, right? The funny thing was that this was actually, we were going to a Rise music festival in Loveland, Colorado. I'll never forget it. It was one of the last ones I ever did in my life. And we were trying to get everybody to put in their votes and stuff like that, and we ultimately lost. We lost the battle of the bands. I've lost every battle of the bands I've ever played in my entire life. And growing up, like doing this thing, before we got into like a venue, venues, and like turn this thing into what it is, like we almost thought like battle bands was like the original like American Idol kind of, like you think you would win the battle bands, and then like the whole world would open up to you, which I don't think was even true back then, but that's what we thought. And there were so many battle of the bands that I've done with various bands that I was in, and never won one of them ever. And I just remember the defeat, like every time we thought we would win, like, and we didn't. It was just so depressing. So those were a lot of failures that we had, and that did keep me going, because I was like, okay, this can't be it. There's got to be more to this music industry than a battle of the bands. And sure enough, we did eventually find our way around that.
What an achievement though for those
Yeah.
other bands getting to say like, maybe we didn't do too much, but we got those Spafford guys in that battle of the
Yeah.
bands.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
Don't miss Spafford playing 2 nights in Columbus, March 28th and 29th, at the legendary Woodlands Tavern. And check out Spafford.net for the rest of their tour dates.
Zooming out, just kind of more talking about life in general. I'd love to hear something that you believe now about life that you didn't believe when you were younger.
God, that's so deep, Cam. You always hit me with these super deep questions. This is why I love having the interviews with you. I mean, relationships are really, really important, and I feel like at some time I didn't really believe relationships to be important as they were, because as I get older, my friends group has kind of diminished. I mean, you would think a guy in a band's got everybody clamoring up, but the thing is like, I get lonely sometimes, just as lonely as anybody else gets. I mean, I'm just human. My job is just playing music versus somebody else's job is being an accountant. But we share all the same, human things that we get, in this world, in this life that we're dealt at this point. So I think that relationships is one of those things that, I find to be really important. This day and age. Some wise person once said to me, "Don't ever miss weddings and funerals." And I have missed a couple weddings in my life due to, unfortunately, just not being able to get to them. I tried everything I could to get to them, but I still always regret not being able to hit some certain, weddings, of friends in my life, and and funerals as well. I have missed a couple funerals from some friends that I wasn't able to attend, and that really has kind of eaten me up as well. So, just relationships I think is really important. I have tried to make it more of a tendency to call people more often, to let them know, like, hey, like I'm not really busy and I'd love to chat, because my brain's always going. I mean, just before we hopped on here, like I called, one of my buddies who I talk to every couple weeks or something like that, but called him right before this and was like, hey, let's catch up. Yeah, I'm not afraid to ever speak my mind, whether or not I'm having like a good day or a bad day or whatever my feelings are. I'm not afraid to really let people know that. And you never want to be like a burden on people or something, but at the same time, you got to do what you got to do for yourself. And if you call enough people, I'm sure you'll find somebody who's willing to talk to you and kind of get you out of that bad mental state that day. Um, so
Amen.
I mean, I have people hit me up, all the time on Facebook and Instagram who might be having a bad day, whether I don't even know who some of the people are. And people are really, and that's like, it's such a cool thing to be thought of like that, maybe I have had a conversation with this person, or, you know, um, they have a connection with me in a way that I'm not even aware of, and they do, reach out, and I'll I'll talk to them. I mean, I come from, part of my growing up when I was around 20, 21, 23 or whatnot, was like heavily in influenced with like therapy and group therapy and all that
Mm.
stuff. I mean, I was going through kind of a crazy thing at that point of time in my life, and I really did learn how to open up, and it wasn't easy. I don't think before that I really was opening up very much. I was keeping a lot to myself, and I just had the blinders on, just like living life, just surviving. And once I was able to kind of slow down and attach some like words to feelings, learn the vocabulary of how I was feeling, was I able to kind of not only help myself in a way, but then be there to be able to help others, and realize that like a group of friends can really just change your state of mind in an instant, depending on what you're talking about. So being honest and being open with that stuff and in tune with your feelings is I don't know, it's a really big part of my life, and really something that I strive to. I continue to work on it every single day, because every single day I wake up grumpy sometimes, I wake up happy, and I wake up this and that, and got friends, and I got my wife to talk to, and um, it's really important to me to be in tune with that.
And that's awesome. You mentioning, you know, you going through what you were referring to just now in your early mid-20s, giving you the vocabulary now to kind of like be more there for people. It's a little bit of like a, you know, a silver lining, you know, going through anything. It gives you this, I don't know what the word would be. It gives you more of an ability to kind of be that person then for other people going through whatever. Um, anyways, I want to jump to the side, kind of get back to music a little bit. How would you describe your personal like musical philosophy with the type of music you hope to make, and then as you're, you know, brainstorming different things you might want to make musically, whether that's on stage with an improvisation or like traditional songwriting kind of thing. How do you determine quality with what you're going for based on this kind of musical philosophy you have?
Well, the good thing with Spafford and the good thing with playing with improv, you know, in an improv band is the fact that we get to redo it over and over every single night. So if we did not hit the mark on something, you know, last night, we have tonight to kind of do it all over again. The way that I, you know, have learned how to play music, it was really solely based on learning a bundle of technique, a lot of ear training, and focus on, you know, quality of tone, to then have this paintbrush, you know, with an easel of colors, you know, or what do you call it? What's the palette of colors, you know, on a blank canvas to be able to just paint whatever I want. You know, I don't come in with like really a bunch of pre-licks that I've learned from my favorite guitar players, or um, you know, I wasn't very good at like transcribing other guitar players and like even retaining that information. You know, I like to learn more of like a grand ability on how many different ways can I play a minor 11th, you know, and like take all of that, and then like if I'm in a jam that requires that, you know, me to do that, then I could play around and I could dance around with this, and I have endless opportunities or endless, you know, positions to play. I mean, I don't think people still even understand like what improv means, and really
Educate
like,
us.
well, I mean, like, and especially what Spafford is doing up there. I mean, like, literally, I mean, it's like, hey, here's G minor, you know, like, go, and we could end up anywhere rhythmically, melodically. Um, you know, we're just listening to each other, and we might know that eventually we have to get, you know, to a B flat major. We might know that we have to get there, but everything at this point is totally open game, and you know, it's every little microsecond, you know, if somebody starts playing something, you know, and sometimes what's really fun is that if somebody's hitting something, um you know, and sometimes that happens with me. I'm the one that like I kind of hit like a wrong note in a way, and then, you know, Corey's kind of like, ooh, that was really cool, and I'm like, no, I hit a wrong note, and then he's like, no, but check this out, and I'm like, oh shit, dude, that is really cool, you know, and like, and then all of a sudden we're going over here, and Jordan's like, what the hell are these guys doing? Okay, and then we all like, we're like, travel over here and let's figure this out, you know, and now we're in this space, you know, and then it's like, great, like we made it here, guys, you know, and this is all nonverbal communication, you know, like this is
Mhm.
all just me, and we're like, great, now we're here. Well, how the hell do we get back? And it's like, well, check this out, you know, and um it's really just like that's the reason why we keep doing it so much and have these long tours with long sets, and some of our songs are really long versions of them because it is true improv. um it's the best. I mean, I absolutely love doing that, and like I said, there's no predetermined script. If we say that we're going to get from one song to the next, and we know this song is in G minor and the next one starts in D major, I mean, we never say, you know, how we're going to get there. We just kind of all figure it out based on just kind of like moving like little tracks, like little pieces of the train track, you know, at one at a time, and then finally it develops into it. Like if you just try to smash these two things together, sometimes like it might not work, and it could be like kind of abrupt, but that sometimes that happens too. I mean, if that's what somebody's feeling right now, then that's fine. But my favorite part is just kind of moving like these little things, one piece at a time, and it takes a while to do that. Um, and it's really up to our discretion on what we think sounds good, I guess, at that time too. So that's just why these songs like take a long time to get from one to the next, and that's why these jams are. And these are the parts that people really enjoy. Is that, and I think that some people do who know what we're doing up there really enjoy what we do because it is different, and I think it's different from what a lot of other bands do. In the vein of improvisation.
I love it. Yeah, and I mean, you just hit the nail on the head. And like me and some of my close friends who I remember like standing next to at Spafford shows, why we're obsessed with like your approach. And I remember specifically Resonance at Marvin's Mountaintop. That set you guys did was just exactly like you just said. Anyways, like diving deeper into this, I'd love to hear your take on patience, and really, have you found yourself kind of looking back in your progression as a musician from, last 15, 20 years, and then even now, has that been like a work in progress for you? And what about patience would you say is most important when it comes to kind of, these drawn out improvisations, having them be great? I feel like patience is such an important aspect of it, but there can also be this give and take, because patience can also, in a different setting, almost feel complacent, like just letting something not move forward enough. But then if you're trying to move it forward too much, you're missing this kind of, like you were mentioning, baby stepping of the improv. I'd just love to hear your take on that.
So every time that we go on stage, we do a huddle. We've been doing this since the beginning of time. And at the end of the huddle, more often than not, we always say, have patience, listen to each other, but most importantly, have fun. And that really, it shouldn't just be words that are said every single night. I mean, really, when you think about that, that means so much. Have patience, like listen to each other, right? And sometimes we'll say, speak when you want to be heard, but listen when others are speaking. And that's something that I will continue to work on my entire musical career. I think a lot of my personality of who I am comes out in my playing, where I do speak a lot and I do want to be heard, and I do like being in the spotlight, and I like all that stuff. But some of the best jams that ever come from Spafford is when I even find myself taking a step back and just letting the collective band just be heard as one. And I think that we all do that depending on how we're hearing that night. Monitors are different every single night. It's such a variable to the improvisation, whether or not we're having a good night or a bad night listening to each other. And it just happens every single time. Every single night that we're up there, it's never consistent, to be honest with you, and it's never consistent for me, at least. So there's times when I feel like I'm really playing as part of the band, based on how I'm hearing it and I'm interpreting it, versus like, hey, I'm just going to kind of keep rolling through this and stomp all over it. But when I'm up there and I like take my ears out of, my guitar is probably the loudest thing that's in my ears. But if I take that second, take a step back and like zone in and really hear what Jordan's doing and really hear what Corey's doing, or hear where Nick's placing his rhythm, like then I'm like, oh, like I wasn't listening. I hold on, now I am like, so God, get in between the rhythms of where Nick is. Not, we were just right on top of each other the whole time, or maybe I was on top of him, and it's like, oh, Corey is doing da 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 da, and I'm like, oh, I was doing da 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 da, and it's like, okay, get off da 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 da, it's like playing in between the rhythms and stuff like that. And there's so much music going on in the ears that it is hard to really decipher that, but I love getting in those zones sometimes where I feel like I am listening to the band, and it takes kind of a special some night to kind of get there. So I'm not sure if I answered the question.
Yeah,
What was
no, fascinating.
the question? Yeah.
That's a home run. You answered it.
It's difficult to answer these things because a lot of this is it's the nonverbal communication. It is this thing that we have been training and learning to do that doesn't have a book to read off of. There's no book to train to do this. Like, you need a band, you need to play over the 10,000 hours together as a unit, to understand each other in this nonverbal communication, to make this happen, especially putting as many genres as we're putting into it. It's there's jazz and there's rock and there's blues and there's trance and there's techno and there's bluegrass and soul and funk and all that stuff. And it's like, well, we're putting the same improvisation sort of blanket like over all of these genres, and trying to instill like our own style of improvisation over all these genres. And it's like, it's quite interesting. It's fascinating that how we've learned to do that. But I've never been able to put it into words before, or I'm trying to at least put it into words today, if any of this makes sense to anyone out there.
Yeah, no, really great answer. Like my question was like, what role does patience play in what you do? And
Yeah.
like taking us through that, it brings me back to this like metaphor, how improvisational music is totally like a symbol for almost like anything, like going after anything in life, whether you're an athlete or you want to start your own like art business, or maybe you're a tech entrepreneur. Like, you want to go after it and you want to here, I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do that, and you just keep trying to make it happen. But then there's also the other side of the coin, letting it come to you. And
yeah, absolutely.
Finding the balance.
Yeah, I mean, you're in the game, you're going to do this no matter what. There's a lot of times when I will put out a riff or I'll put out something, and I have to kind of disband from that. It's either like nobody heard the riff, they didn't, I wasn't in tune with them, and they didn't hear what I was trying to do, and then I will kind of bail out. And maybe for a couple moments there, I'm like, man, I really wanted that to be something, but you know what? I'm gonna get over it, like move on. And this all happens like fairly quick. It's like, okay, why didn't they listen at this point? It's like, well, maybe I was trying to speak when they were also trying to speak. So let me just find out what's going on real quick. And I'll kind of sit back and like, play something like less, aggressive. And then I'll listen to Corey or listen to Nick or, listen to Jordan. And I'm like, oh, like maybe that's why they weren't following me, because they were doing this. So let me try to follow them. So there's times to be a leader out there, like we were talking before. There's times to be the leader out there, and there's times to be the follower. And if somebody else is speaking, you want to really try to comp them, and blend into what they're doing. But then there's other times when you stand out and they got you. So that's like a really cool, there's a good supportive musical conversation that's kind of going on up there that everybody needs to just be aware of.
Totally. And yeah, part of being a great leader is being a great follower. 100%. Getting people to also step up and lead.
Absolutely. The band is not the sum of its parts is not whatever the phrase is. I mean, like, the band together, like, put me up against like a lot of other guitar players. Like, I feel I get blown out of the water, with guitar players and their technical ability, or, I look up to so many players out there on what they can do technically, and their tone, and I mean, like, oh, some of these guys just, and but maybe put that guitar player in Spafford and it doesn't work right. I feel like I'm the right guitar player for Spafford, and I feel like these guys that are in Spafford are the right players for the band, because we're not trying to outshine each other at any time. Everybody has that moment every single night, or almost every single song. They get to that moment where like they drove it, the feature is on them, and everybody's just sitting back, just comping, and you're just like, you got this face on, just looking at Jordan, being like, oh my God, like, how did you get there? Like, what? I look at him sometimes and I'm like, oh, what is that? And I realized, because like I was just letting it be. I was just being patient. And he, and the whole time he was developing this thing, and now he's in the spot, and it's just like, oh God, like, this is awesome. So, those are the moments that I live for on stage. And spreading that out through every musician, every single night. Everybody gets that moment.
I love it.
This is Flowers on the Stage, a podcast about being creative and finding success. To support it, please check out our sponsors, New Belgium Brewing, Thrax CBD, and Ticket Relief, the ticketing company that plants trees with a portion of each ticket sold. And now, back to the episode.
My next question I had here, and maybe you already answered it, but maybe, who knows, maybe you have an answer to this. What's something with your creative process? So, and maybe that's beyond just improvising. So anything involved with your creative process that you stay away from doing, that you avoid doing, that you think helps you be successful with what you do?
Well, I mean, being too overly critical could, be a huge detriment. I think that there's a level of criticism, and let's not even call it criticism. Let's just call it like feedback, that you can either have with yourself or you can have with others. And, having patience, as a lot of this talk is patience, is having patience with others or with yourself about, what's coming out, and just not getting too down on yourself if you had a bad show, hit a wrong note, like whatever, man, like that's fine. Like that stuff is fine. This stuff is totally okay with me. Like I definitely don't try to be too hard on myself, because I know I'll get another opportunity to kind of fix it the next time.
As an artist and as like personally, and then as a band, what would you say is most important when you for yourself define success, and the way you define success for yourself? What actually is that?
So Jordan and I, back in 2010, when we formed Spafford, and when we said that this is a band called Spafford, and we had aspirations, we had pretty big aspirations at the time, but we were nowhere near, even knowing how to get through this. But we knew that we wanted to be in a band, and we knew that we wanted to get it really far. We sat at a coffee shop called Cuppers, I believe, in Prescott, Arizona. I remember sitting outside on the bench, and we wrote ourselves like either a 5-year mission statement. It was like a 5 or 7-year mission statement. We probably still didn't finish any of those things, or some of those items until last year. There were really big, grandiose kind of ideas that we stuck to, and we held on to. That it was kind of like our Bible, so to speak, and we really held on to that. So I think that success obviously has to vary. If you're looking at anybody else where anybody else is, you probably won't ever necessarily find success or feel that you're successful, because you can't put yourself up against like the way anybody else has done it. I have had my own version of success, which was make a career out of playing music, and I've done that. So guess what? I feel like I'm successful. That has been my goal for as long as I could remember. Now to put that, I said I want to play 1,000 capacity rooms. This has literally been my version of success. I want to play 1,000 capacity rooms throughout the country. That to me is successful, and we're not. Right? There's some rooms that we play that are 500, or some rooms that we're still playing that are 250 or 300. But the main thing is making a career out of doing this, and we have. And I don't need a bajillion dollars to be happy doing this. I'm happy doing it, because it's find something that you love, and you never work a day in your life, right? At some point in time, this was a hobby and a passion, mixed with methodical choices to get to where we are. I mean, a lot of obstacles along the way, and a lot of choices to go back to school, to learn how to to write, to learn how to read, to learn how to work as a band, and all this time that we spent together going through the trials and tribulations of what it's being in a band, led us to this moment of being successful. And in our eyes of what we think is successful is we're still here, and don't get me wrong, we'd love to be, bigger than we are, and love to be, the big stadiums and all that stuff. And hopefully one day we can still get there. And, that's with the help of our fans and the community around us that helps to continue to push that, and, keeps spreading the word, and keep, getting new listeners and getting people involved in this thing. That's, we owe so much to the fans, and we certainly do want to get there. Don't get us wrong. But currently right now we are pretty impressed and pretty amazed that we've been able to make it this far. I think it's time for a new 5-year mission statement, as I think that like I said, we finally have closed up that initial mission statement, last year. It was a 5-year mission statement, which took 15 years to do. But so now it's time for us to sit down and write another one.
I love it. It's like being on the ride is inherently what success is. Like, success is the opportunity to do it. I love how you say, like, comparison is the thief of joy. Everyone's got their own, like, carrot on the stick. My favorite quote is that, like, relates to this, is like, the only actual thing that will keep someone from success is quitting. Because as long as you're still going at it.
Yeah. Everybody, we all fail, and everybody's failing. And the only way to see what success is if you failed. And the word fail is so
right. It's like,
harsh.
Is that fail?
Yeah,
is
it's
that
so
even
harsh.
Failing?
No, it's just obstacles. That's really what it is. It's just obstacles. And like every van breakdown that we've had, we've just been riddled with these with breakdowns. It's just been one of the biggest things that's kind of held us back. Traveling in the Southwest, as a young band, was really, really difficult. And everything, every obstacle along the way, we chose to overcome it. And I don't think that I think a lot of people face these obstacles and they don't have the tools or don't know how to get through it. And they quit at, these level 1 obstacles, and, you'd never make it to the level 5 obstacles, so I tell people, like, don't quit, like, figure out how to get around it, because it never stops. And I think that even, the bigger you get, it's the bigger the obstacles continue to happen. Kind of mo money, mo problems sort of thing, but I don't know. I find that to be interesting and fun. I like, finding solutions to things. And I think the team, works well off of finding solutions to things. So bring on the obstacles. We've dealt with so many, already, that I think it just makes us stronger. And it, with every obstacle, gives us a platform, or some sort of a story to write a song about, and it's like, if this was so easy, like, what would we be writing about, so we take all those things and we put those elements into songs here and there, and are playing every night. Some nights, like, the best nights playing is like, we had the fucking worst day ever out there. It's like, oh, it's been terrible. And then we hit the stage and it's like, boom, check this shit out. And everyone's like, oh my God, I totally felt the energy. And it's like, really? Because I had the worst day of my entire life, but it got funneled and put into this, vocabulary of music that, for me, I'm not good at, like, speaking that. My vocabulary is like, it's not very good or defined, but when you give me a guitar, I can say things on guitar that I can't speak, and I think that us as a band, like, we do that. And, like, whether, maybe tonight became a little more aggressive or more bliss or whatever it may be. And, like, that's the best part of doing this is, and that's what makes each show special.
I love it. It's like, failure is like a mirage, and they're really just obstacles that it seems like you can channel. Most people can channel. And, the only actual failure that exists is quitting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can't quit. Can't do it.
How, if at all, do you feel like being a dad has caused you to become different as a person?
Starting from having feelings that I never knew existed about someone else. The love I feel for my son is something I never thought you could feel. And I want to give this kid everything. I want to be there for every moment of his life and everything that he learns and everything. And as he's getting older, I realize I can't be, there. And for as much as I tore, it really pains me to not be there. But when I am home, I try to be there for him, 24/7. And we've really had a great week here bonding this past week, and it's been one of like the most amazing weeks of my life being able to bond, because now we can start to like kind of communicate a bit more. He doesn't stop talking, so he can really talk. He understands. He can say how he feels. We can. And oh my God, it's been so much fun just having like a little friend, to go explore the world with and to show him new things. But people said it early on. It's like he'll show you more than you show him, and he has. And more has gone into this like level of patience that I never had it ever in my life. And just taking a deep breath sometimes and just trying to understand what he's going through, as a 2.5-year-old. Like, what feelings and emotions are you going, what are you feeling right now? And I think that some parents or some people are so quick to kind of discipline them, and try to almost like tell them like, oh, stop crying. And it's like, no, dude, if you're feeling this way, like, go ahead and cry. Like, I get it, like you're learning all this stuff for the first time. And just being able to be there for him, and kind of, gosh, being like being a provider for somebody else, having like a dependent, somebody who like relies on you to eat food and to know when to sleep and to, it's like, it's been crazy to experience that. But I have only become a better person because I've become a father. And I've only tried to take the things that I've learned, by being a dad, into my everyday life or my business life or my work life, like whatever it is. I try to take that with me. I mean, I have no choice. I have to take that with me, because it just keeps going around. I'm not trying to be one way with him and one way with somebody else. So it's just changing me as a whole, and I'm bringing that into every aspect of my life because it's only making me a better person.
I love that. Hell yeah. What do you think future you would say to you now if given the chance?
Keep going. Just don't give up. Keep going. Keep writing. Keep practicing. Compartmentalize your time a little better. There's not enough time in a day for everything. So you got to like really put effort into taking your downtime like kind of away from you and applying it to other things is what I find right now. But I'm sure that will all change, again, as my son gets older and as the touring schedule of Spafford changes and all that stuff. But I think my future self would also tell me like, you're doing a good job. I do.
As they should say.
Yeah. And I think it's saying like, thanks for being open to the world and to learning. And I am forever a student of life or music and relationships and all that stuff. I am always trying to learn to just become a better person, and I'm always open to that, as best as I can. So yeah, I think that's what he's saying.
I love that answer. I've asked this question a bunch of times. This is one of my favorite questions to ask. And this is the first time anyone said, I would say thank you. I love that. Think about that for a second.
Yeah. I'm trying to do what's right. I'm trying to set myself up, for the future. And I am a macro thinker. I do think about that, like, versus a micro thinker. What we do today, like, will help me tomorrow. I think what I do today will help me in 6 months, or a year or something like that. So not to lose sight of the moment as well, because that can easily be taken away from you. But I'm trying to live in the moment, but with deliberate, actions and stuff that will set me up and help me for the future.
It's like a razor's edge, between the rat race, just being truly just grateful in here. So
Yeah.
I got one more question for you. In looking back at your career, everything you've accomplished and gotten to do, like, rock star dreams, and you mentioned being at the coffee shop and writing out your goals and to see where you've gotten to. You've tasted success, quote unquote success. And I feel like you would have a very interesting perspective on what ultimately brings the most true fulfillment, because success and fulfillment aren't necessarily the same thing. So my question is, what have you learned ultimately brings you the most fulfillment aside from your family life?
I mean, musically, yeah, I
Professionally?
mean, professionally, musically is staying true to myself and trying to find out who that self is. The constant, desire for, you know, as we change and as we get older and as we, our views kind of change, or our desires kind of change, is also like, allowing that to have a positive effect on this thing that I've started so long ago, and not trying to let that derail, what my ultimate vision was. Because I think that it's really important. So having like a child is like, I kind of get back to like being a kid again, and it's so cool. Like sometimes I get in that zone because like, we're playing like, imaginary everything right now. Okay. Like everything is like imaginary, and like, it's like, no shit, it's not there. You can't see it, but like he can see these things. And I'm like, you know what? Like, let's do it. And like, when I get into it, it's like, oh my God, it's so much fun. And like, just making rocket ships out of blankets, and like, and like just like the simplest little things, he likes making ice cream, but he like takes all his like toy trucks and stuff, and he's making ice cream, here's whipped cream and here's this and let's put it on top, and like, it's like the imagination is so incredible. And like, I want to always have that, because my desire to be a musician was when I was really young. That's like, that's what I wanted to be. And obviously not as young as 2.5 years old, but like, I carried that with me. And, life and like seriousness like kind of got in the way at some point, but like to always retain this like level of, adolescence, like with my dreams and stuff, I think is really important. Because that's where it came from. And that's, where it always stems from. And I think it's always important to just know who that young Brian was, who wanted this so long ago. And as you grow and as you change and you meet people and that you go through these experiences and stuff like that, like to not lose sight of the reason why you were doing this in the first place.
Amen. I love it. Brian, this has been freaking awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Cam, always a pleasure hanging with you. I love your questions. I love how deep we get with this stuff, and I appreciate you bringing this to the table.
Hell yeah, man. Likewise, I appreciate how deep you get both on the interview, but also on stage. Can't wait to see you on tour coming up. Everyone who's listened this far, we got links in the description to keep up with everything Spafford's got going on. Tour coming up. Can't wait to see you for 2 nights at Woodlands this March, and safe travels out there.
Thanks, brother.